Besides the parkour and the intimately connected combat system, the original Dying Light had a very unique crafting system, lending itself to the horror survival elements of that game, and with those mechanics we were able to become more adept at survival by crafting medkits, repairing weapons using metal parts we got from scavenging the environments, or dismantling other weapons we found, or even weapons that broke on us that could no longer be repaired, and we even became more efficient at killing by collecting blueprints. Blueprints were obtained more often than not by exploring the environments, or you can also get them by completing bounties or even certain side quests, but they were a good way to encourage exploration, whether you're in Old Town or slums back in Haran. Blueprints was the way to obtain weapons that were more durable, more deadly, and even supported new effects like lighting enemies on fire, electrocuting them, or applying a bleeding or even a toxic effect. And of course, I can't forget to mention we had weapon mods. Mods boosted the basic stats on a weapon. They had 3 categories, which were durability, handling, and damage. While mods boosted these 3 categories, they didn't apply any further visual or elemental alterations. It was strictly how the weapon worked naked or by itself. Throw on a blueprint with weapon mods, and now you have something that you can swing faster, hit harder, and last longer. I don't want to call this entire system basic because it's really not, and it'd be a little bit of a slap in the face to tackling if I did. And it's pretty easy for newcomers to the game to become easily overwhelmed by the many different aspects to it, which after 7 years, veteran players of Dying Light forget how complicated at the start all of this is, and I'm guilty of that myself. But breaking it down, it consisted of exploring for blueprints, finding the parts for the blueprints, and then a weapon that the blueprint supported. Since not every blueprint could be applied to every single weapon, you had to find whatever weapon was in this column. Sometimes it'd be general categories, or it'll be a specific list of different weapons just based off the size. So while incredibly unique, it still was restrictive. You had to find things that corresponded with each other. And of course, if you created something that you really liked, you had to have a good amount of metal parts to ensure that you can continuously repair that specific weapon to take it with you for as long as possible. So with at least a basic understanding of weapons and crafting in the original game, how's it going to be in Dying Light 2? With story, parkour, the world, and events being completely overhauled, did they leave the crafting and melee combat behind? Pretty much. So get you storing up thousands of metal parts now. I'm joking. But that does lead up to a good point that I want to touch on a little bit further in the video. But the combat and crafting is another aspect that's actually been completely overhauled, and there are still some things that are still questionable, like how exactly a weapon is fully repaired since metal parts are no longer needed for that, and if how we repair weapons can even be stacked now, which I'll elaborate more on in a second as well. But let's first talk about what we know based off the developers and early gameplay shared from content creators. Links to everything I referenced, content creators and developers alike, will all be down in the description in case you want to check those videos out in their entirety. But let's first start off with Dying to Know Episode 3 Gamescom Edition. This is where Techland really tackles the topic of combat for the first time. They go a little deeper into the crafting and upgrading system in the following Dying to Know More episode, but during this episode, they set our expectations in terms of what weapons are going to look like. Remember, the world of Dying Light 2 takes place in a modern dark age, so don't expect things like guns or technology-based advanced stuff. Everything you get your hands on are all meant to be items the citizens of Villador can realistically get a hold of. It's all things readily found available inside the city. They also say this in regards to each weapon design.
Just by looking at the weapon, you can tell where the maker found the parts. At a military base, a museum, a repair garage.
Exactly. It's exactly like that in the game. When you pick the weapon, you instantly realize if it was cobbled together in a street, or maybe made by factions where they have access to welding and steel cutting equipment.
What I gathered from that is based off how a weapon looks, you can identify the individual parts that went into crafting it. No shit, that's repeating the devs damn near verbatim, but bear with me. I would surmise that with the knowledge of certain factions or bandit groups having access to wood cutting or steel cutting equipment, if a keen-eyed player acknowledges that early game, it might give certain people an advantage to upgrade their weapons in certain ways that other people won't really get to mid or late game just based off of the risk factor. I'm pretty positive at the beginning we're going to be pretty weak as far as our parkour and combat adeptness goes. Let's say we come across a bandit camp and we realize that they're much stronger than we are, so the majority of us might just say fuck it and run away. Some people might identify that because they have access to steel cutting over something we just put together in the street, maybe it's worth taking down that bandit camp or taking down these enemies and gaining access to certain resources that we can then turn around and take over to the craftsmaster, which in case you didn't know, the Craftsmaster is a new NPC in the game that you do little quests for, like gathering resources. You take him back to him and he will upgrade a blueprint for you, which by the way, in this game, a blueprint can be upgraded upwards of 9 times. Not every single one, it is a case-by-case basis, but there's another level of variety and depth that the original game didn't have. So to recap off of this Dying to Know episode, we can identify parts and how a weapon was made based off its look, tell what faction or group of enemies have access to things like welding or steel cutting equipment, and we also know that a weapon can be modded with offensive or defensive capabilities by improving the handle or the blade by using mods. Moving over into their following Dying to Know episode, we also know that the upgrade system in Dying Light 2 is going to be less restrictive than the original. They mentioned that each weapon can have 3 mod slots. Now taking these 2 episodes along with what Onizombies says in his honest review, which I'll leave linked down below, makes it sound like the modding system in this game is a combination of blueprints, weapon repairs, and upgrades, or the weapon mods that I referenced at the beginning of this video from the original game. And the reason why I say part of the upgrade system is because of what Onizombies says here.
Are there weapon repairments in the game? There are, but it's not your traditional repairment system that we're used to in Dying Light 1. It's my understanding that in lieu of scraps to repair, you now use weapon mods, and that increases your durability. So for example, I had the Last Hope and I upgraded it using a spark mod which added electricity to my weapon. By adding this mod, it increased the durability by 50. And then from there, you are free to go on and keep adding on the spark mod if you have enough tools, thereby increasing the durability again by that same number.
I also want to briefly show you this screenshot right here. One of the, I believe he's Russian, one of the content creators for a very short time showed what the vendor looks like, at least in the build that he was playing. Again, all of this stuff can change come February 4th. We don't know how far people were in the game, what kind of build they were playing, but if anything, what we can take away from this is at least what the modding system would look like. And this is supported by what the developer said in both Dying to Know episodes. We know we can upgrade the handle and the blade, and in the screenshot you have the handle, the shaft, and the tip, as well as the 3 modding slots that they talked about. Let me know what you guys think about all this. Do you think this is the combination of those 3 systems, or am I oversimplifying it? Maybe I missed something. It's a little difficult forming a full picture since you have some content creators share this or talk about that, and developers bring up this. So there's always a possibility of something slipping through the cracks, and of course, I highly doubt Techland is willing to reveal all their cards and throw them down on the table. I still have a lot of questions, whether if this is the full-on repair system or not. If weapon mods increase durability, like Oni said, I mean, I'm sure eventually they're gonna break and you can't just keep fixing it forever, but I'm curious if you can switch out weapon mods. You know, like maybe you have a fire effect on your shaft and ice on the handle, so ice, when you parry perfectly, freezes an enemy, and then you can counter with a fire offensive attack, and then maybe the fire breaks or the weapon breaks and you can just swap out those weapon mods, replace them, and then the durability, let's say prior to those mods breaking, was at 100, and because this is now a second round of mods, regardless if the effects are different or not, the overall durability actually decreases. You know, like you get max durability again, but the overall maximum drops from 100 down to 84 because it's the second time you repaired it. That would make more sense. But of course, I'm just spitballing here. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. How do you feel about all of this? In the meantime, while you're scrolling down to leave a comment, maybe you consider subscribing for more future Dying Light 2 content. Not only just pulling wild theories out of my ass, but actual news updates once the game comes out, maybe tutorials, who knows. And like always, feel free to join the Discord. Link is down in the pinned comment. There's over 2,000 members there that are not only excited for the upcoming release of Dying Light 2, but general gaming news, chats around Doom, Halo, Assassin's Creed, Call of Duty, you name it, that they're fighting about it somehow in there. So I can't wait to see you there. But until next time, I'll see y'all later.